Este es un espacio patrocinado por T&BAO, la mejor oferta en nuestra ciudad, en Denver, Colorado. A great journalist, and he knows everything about Colorado Rockies and MLB. He has a lot years working in MLB, like a writer. He's the official writer of MLB for Colorado Rockies. So thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't know that I know everything, but I know a few things hanging around here 23 years. And hey, you do great stuff. I've watched it, I've listened to it. You do great stuff.
Yeah. So perfect. So we're gonna start to know about your career. When you start to write about baseball?
Okay, this is funny. So I actually was still in high school in Bluefield, West Virginia back in 1981. I was not a great football player, but good enough to play on my high school team. And toward the end of that season, I was helping out our girls' basketball team, keeping their stats. And I met one of the local sports writers, and we really hit it off. And by that summer, he had me actually doing some minor league games for him. So I worked all through college, and I've covered every level of the minor leagues. I've covered every sport that there is: football, basketball, baseball, hockey. I've done recruiting. I've done legal stuff like the deal to bring the NFL to Nashville. I've done lawsuits. I've done a little bit of everything. But what I really like doing is coming out to baseball parks, watching the game, writing about the game, trying to find the stories that maybe you don't see while the game is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. You like sports, in general. So, well, what's mean for you the baseball?
The thing about baseball is it's every day. I grew up playing a lot of football, American football, I should say. I grew up playing a lot of football, but it's one game a week, and when you're an athlete, it's a wonderful thing because you get to work on your craft and everything else. When you're a writer, frankly, it's boring because, you talk to guys a couple times, but there really isn't anything new going on. So I like the fact that you can, every day there's something new happening because there's a game. There's a result. There's a change. There's a slump. There's a hot streak. That's what I love about baseball.
Please, can you explain us how was the process, for how was the process for start to write in MLB?
Okay. Well, I haven't always written for MLB.com. I wrote for newspapers for a lot of years. Bluefield, West Virginia, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Memphis, Tennessee for 11 years, and I covered the Rockies for the Colorado Springs Gazette for a couple of years. So this is my 21st with MLB.com and my 23rd covering the Rockies. A lot of what I say, if you want to be a writer, you have to write a lot, you have to read a lot. I wrote a little bit of everything. I wrote some news, I wrote features, I wrote a whole lot of different things. So I think the process is learn as much as you can about writing and also learn as much as you can about the subject. I played some baseball growing up, but not a lot. So I spent a lot of time just trying to learn the game. And hopefully I can give that to the readers.
Yeah, so something special with baseball writers, journalists, is we have baseball every day. 162 games per season plus playoff. Right. So you have a lot of opportunities, for interviews, for news, reportings, for everything. You fly with the team, so you go the other stadium. I mean, that's my point, Yeah. So, in your opinion, what is the most amazing in your job?
The most amazing. I'll tell you what it is. You have the players that come. They're between, say, 23 and 35 years old, okay? Guys come, they go, but there's another set of players between 23 and 35 years old. So they never get older, so you never get older. That's the great thing about this, I think, is that you're around so many different people, but you're around people that are kind of a young age, people that are excited about their lives, and you're constantly around them. You're not always around people that are a whole lot older or maybe closer to the end of their career. So I kind of like that. I kind of like being around people that are younger. I like to consider myself young.
Yeah. So, our profession is changing. Like the life. Right now we have internet, social media, website. So, how was your adaptation for the new technologies?
Well, first of all, I guess I was one of the first to go strictly to the internet as opposed to being in newspapers. Newspapers were the thing. Obviously, the pace of life has changed. I like the video that's come into it. I like some of the audio stuff. I do not like social media as much. You have to figure out what social media means to you. For example, like in your case, you can put things on YouTube, you can put things on Instagram, and that's your way of reaching the people. I don't particularly like the banter with people, like on Twitter, where people get into arguments and things like that. I think it takes away from the job. So you've got to kind of figure out where you fit in social media. There are people that their opinion on social media, that's the main part of their job.
Perfect. So, in your opinion, so now, what is the most difficult in the profession?
I think just trying to get people, there are so many people out there writing, so many people speaking, that you have to be noticed. You have to be better in order for people to keep coming back to you. You have to give them more, because a lot of people give their opinions, but it's only as good as their opinion. Can you teach them something about the game? Can you show them something that maybe they don't see? That is the difficult part. Frankly, it's always been there, but now with so many more people, I mean, literally anybody could have a website and say, I cover the Colorado Rockies. But do you get the same thing that you get from those of us who are around the team every day? I would say no.
For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, so we start right now the part number 2 of this beautiful interview. So we want to talk about baseball, the MLB in this season. So what is your analysis about this division, the West of the National League?
Well, it's a fun division to watch because of what the San Diego Padres have done, all the money that they've spent, all the guys they've put together. And it looks like this isn't a one-shot deal. They're going to try to find ways to improve that team as they go. I give them a lot of credit because a lot of teams in the sort of the smaller markets, they don't do those things that they're doing. And obviously they're going after the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Dodgers have been the kings of this division for most of the last decade and a half. Dodgers, I'm interested to see what happens during the season because it didn't seem like they did a lot in the offseason. So Padres and Dodgers at the top. The other team I'm watching is the Arizona Diamondbacks. And if you look at the Colorado Rockies now, where they have a couple young guys in the lineup, but some guys on the way, it seems like the Diamondbacks are a little bit ahead of that. All of their young guys are in the major leagues right now, it seems, and they got their feet wet last year, and this year they're playing a lot better baseball. And right now they're starting off well. Do they have enough to hang with the big boys in the division? If they do, this is going to be a great division to watch.
Yeah, of course. So I remember, so maybe 2 years ago or something like that, Dodgers and Giants, they won more than 100 games. Remember that? So maybe we think that right now the East division in the National Leagues is harder right now. What do you think? What is your opinion? I'm talking about Brave,
Right. Yeah. Braves, Phillies, yeah, Mets, yes. That's a good division. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, especially if the Diamondbacks come on. I mean, so you can have really 2 divisions that are the best 2 in baseball. I think going in, you'd have to say the East is better. But if the Diamondbacks get in there with the Padres and the Dodgers, then the West will be just as good as the East. I love that East division, and you really never know what will happen because it seems like those teams make so many moves during the year. You go back to the Braves when they won the World Series. They were actually right around 500, maybe even a little below before they started making their trades, and they got hot. It seems like somebody in that division gets hot late in the year and really makes a difference down the stretch.
You're right, 100%. For example, in this division, Washington National, they won the World Series a few years ago. Philly played the World Series. Brave won, so it's really hard. So we want to start to talk a little bit about the American League. So what about the East in American League? it's really hard. It's Yankees, Boston, Tampa Bay right now is no loss.
Right.
No?
Well, this is early. Tampa Bay will be in it. And mark my words, the Toronto Blue Jays will be a big factor in that division. I don't know that the Boston Red Sox are quite ready to rebound from a really disastrous year last year. It just doesn't seem like they're that team, but they have a tendency to do things quite well. But I really like the young squad that the Toronto Blue Jays have put together. I think that they, over the last 3-4 years, have gradually worked their young guys into it and shown that they trust them. So Blue Jays, Tampa Bay, Yankees are still good, obviously. I mean, and they take advantage of their park. Yankees, you always expect them to win a division, but they do have some competition. So that's going to be a tough division.
So what about the West in American League?
Well, the Houston Astros, to me, are the kings of baseball. I mean, I'm expecting them to win the World Series again, to be honest with you. The Seattle Mariners are the team in the West that can put up a challenge. And I expect the Mariners to be in the playoffs again. I expect them maybe even to do something in the playoffs. The Mariners may be the next Astros in that you see the pitching that's coming and the depth of the pitching. And they've got a really good set of position players. So they may be the next Astros, but the Astros aren't going anywhere. They're going to be there. They're always, it seems like, and especially with Dusty Baker there with this iteration of the team, they're going to be a very tough out, and I still expect them to win the World Series.
Yeah, so, it's interesting because after the All-Star game this season, we're going to receive here in Coors Field Yankees and Houston.
Oh, that'll be great, yes. I mean, and, you get their fans. I mean, the Rockies, let's face it, when they're struggling, they do a good job of getting other teams' fans in here. So there's going to be a great atmosphere here with the Yankees and the Houston Astros.
Yeah. So, well, a lot of our followers that are from Latin America, So we're going to talk about Rockies, I remember when I was a kid, I had a video game in Super Nintendo, okay? The name is Ken Griffey Jr.,
Okay.
In this game, only they had 28 teams.
Right.
And if you pass the season, the World Series, you could unlock 2 teams more. One of these is Tampa. The second one is Rockies. So Rockies is a new team, it's a new history. So what's mean the Colorado Rockies, the mountain baseball here in the city? What's mean that for the baseball lovers?
Well, I think for the baseball lovers, it's a beautiful ballpark. They expect the team to do well. It hasn't. I mean, it's kind of an uphill battle money-wise against the Dodgers and the Giants and teams like that. The one thing I'll say about the Rockies right now, and, especially for the Latino baseball followers, they have gone back and revived the Latin American program that had really gone kind of down for a bit. If you look through the minor leagues, and you go to MLB.com and look at our top 30 prospects, a number of them are position players from Latin America. Not a lot of pitchers, but position players. And part of that is a strategy they've come up with. What they're doing now in the draft, they're drafting power hitters, usually college, but some high school, like a Zach Veen, like Drew Romo. They're drafting hitters that have some impact. Then the rest of the draft is pitchers. So the Latin American program, what you're hoping is you have more Ezequiel Tovars come through, guys who can play a position. I mean, you look at Adel Amador, one of the best prospects in baseball. He's injured at the start of the season, but you'll probably see him in Spokane at some point in the high A. Yanquiel Fernandez, an outfielder who really had a good spring training when he was called over to the major leagues. So I think that as the years go, and if the Rockies do what they expect to do, a lot of really good infielders, maybe the middle of the infield. I think some power hitters and guys who can run. They're going to come out of the Latin American program that they've really worked on. One of the things they did, they have that complex in the Dominican Republic. And instead of just having one team, they decided to have 2 teams. And that is the reason you're starting to see guys like Tovar, like Fernandez, like Amador, like Carreras, Julio Carreras, who's in Double-A, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the major leagues this season. So I think that as a Latin American baseball fan, the Rockies may be a team that you can kind of really root for in the future.
Yeah. So, in this moment, Rockies is the team in MLB with more Venezuelan players. They have Dominican Republic, so they have from Mexico, U.S. Mexico, Alan Trejo. So, and they had in the past Andres Galarraga, Carlos Gonzalez, Vini Castilla. My question is, Colorado is a Spanish word. The history of this state is a lot culture about Colorado. So what is your opinion about that?
My opinion about that is I think it's wonderful. I wish the Rockies themselves did more with it. I know that they do some things during Hispanic Heritage Month, but I mean, this is a team that I think in the community here, like Jorge De La Rosa was a wonderful pitcher here. And I always wondered, could they have done more to promote him to the especially Mexican community here in Colorado. I think that in future years, especially as this team becomes more Latino, that'll be a challenge for the Rockies to make sure that the community here, which is a strong community, is in the stands at the ball games, watching the team on TV, following on the radio. I hope that happens.
Yeah. So, I wanna know your opinion because you have a lot experience, about the history of Colorado Rockies. So, I remember in 90s, at the beginning is something like a bomber of Blake Street. Remember?
Yeah, the Blake Street Bombers.
Yeah. So I remember when I was a kid, for example, Andres Galarraga, Vini Castilla, big people, strong people, players, I mean. So, but I don't know. I feel that strategy, is changing. It's not maybe too much strong people. It's different players right now. What do you think? The strategy changed? Because at the beginning, the altitude, maybe home runs, But right now, it's different. I'm wrong. What do you think?
Well, actually, you're onto something. But if you look at the last couple of drafts, like guys like Zach Veen, Drew Romo, guys that came, Jordan Beck, Sterling Thompson, in the most recent drafts, they're drafting bigger people. And even some of the guys who are on the team now are saying, yes, we need bigger guys here. We need bigger guys that can hit the ball a long way. Now, the thing about the early Rockies teams, the Blake Street Bombers, they not only had big guys, we're talking about, the big cat, Andres Galarraga, but Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, Ellis Burks was a big man, but they all ran too. With the bigger bases, if they have home run hitters and steal some bases, they can really make a difference here. I think that the team got into waiting for the home run and not running. But also, yeah, you did have a lot of smaller guys here, and I think that was just more of just different circumstances that happened. But you look at the teams that went to the playoffs. DJ LeMahieu, one of the biggest second basemen in history. Nolan Arenado was not a small man. Trevor Story was a big shortstop. You go all around the field, and there were big, strong guys. So when the Rockies have gotten away from that, and when they've had fewer of them, they've not been as good offensively. So give us big guys, but I just think in the future, also give some big guys that can run. I mean, you go back to the 1996 team under Don Baylor. They went to the playoffs in 95, just missed in 96. But that team, they hit 221 home runs, but they also stole 201 bases. That's pretty good, okay? Last year's Rockies stole 45 bases. I think this team right now, 10 games in, has stolen either 2 or 3. I mean, you want power, but you want people who can run, because people who can run not only steal bases, but they cover that big outfield. So those are a lot of the things the Rockies are looking at, and some of the guys that have come through, that are coming through the draft and the Latin American program, I think there's a little bit more power than speed, but they need to get some speed going too.
Yeah. So, Mr. Thomas, we are entering right now in the last part of this interview. Thank you for your time. So, the MLB is changing the rules. It's for entertainment. A lot of people love it. So, in your opinion, what is the goal for this change?
Well, it's funny. I don't think they're changing the game. I'm a lot older than you. I can tell because you were growing up with Galarraga and those guys. But if you go back to when I was young, late 60s, early 70s, into the 80s, there was a lot of speed on the bases. There was a lot of action during the game. The games moved quickly. They didn't take all day to throw the ball. They didn't take all day to get into the batter's box. What this has done is move the game back to where it was when I was young, actually, as far as just the action. I think if you have action, it doesn't matter whether it's a 2-1 game or whether it's a 7-5 game. If players aren't just standing around, if there aren't a lot of meetings on the mound and things like that, those are the things that turn fans off. Action is what they want in baseball, and I think it's actually getting back to where it was rather than a completely different game. I know a lot of the younger people, they're changing this game. This game has been around over 150 years. It's changed a lot over that time. And I think getting back to having a little bit more excitement, more people moving around the bases, just the pitcher getting the ball and throwing it, the batter in there ready to hit, I think that it is making the game a lot better to watch for the fan.
Yeah, I love your point of view because it's real. So baseball is coming back the origin. The baseball was in the past the number one entertainment for American people, and in the history with the years start to lose some positions. But the baseball think right now we have the potential for come back the number one sport in U.S. What do you think?
Well, there's so many more options now that it's hard to rate, but here's what you want. And here's the thing I want. Young people playing baseball. What has happened to the game, I think more than even as much as the lack of action on the field over the last few years, baseball's become such a money sport, which I don't understand. It's like, I think that we're doing a pretty good job with football/soccer here in cutting down on the price of it. Because if you look at it, baseball is not the most... What's expensive about baseball? You get a glove, you get some shoes, okay? Your team could give you the bats. What's expensive about baseball? But we've made it so expensive now. If we can get it to the point where young people are playing it, I think that will help. If you have a better game here and more young people playing baseball. And I think baseball is doing the right things when it comes to that. Because what happened was, football, it's a great spectator sport, but also the younger leagues, it was cheaper for a lot of young kids to play American football than it was to play baseball. That's just not right. So if baseball can get to the point to where it's affordable for families, then I think that the kids will be playing it, and those are the ones who will make the difference in the future.
Yeah. So on my last point, I want to talk with you, is you are a great journalist. So you give weekly a lot of information, news for American newspapers, Latin American newspapers, I mean. So a lot of information about, the rookie players from Latin America, from Venezuela, and people read you. You have a lot of information. So what is your satisfaction, about that?
Yeah, it's great, and thank you for asking me that question. Here's the way I look at it, is that let's say that Ezequiel Tovar shows up. He showed up last August. There were a lot of fans who knew something about him, and I feel like I was a part of that. That, hey, this guy, yeah, he just showed up, but I've read that he did this in Hartford. I've read that he was one of the top prospects. And at MLB.com, we do a lot of that because there is always something new. Let's face it, the Rockies right now are not a very good team. But there are a lot of things that you can look to in the future with this team. There are guys on this roster with Elevis Montero and Ezequiel Tovar and several others right now that are young players that are coming through. There are guys on the way up. There's always something to watch in baseball, even if your team isn't good right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you an example. Sometimes I'm reading, for example, Meridiano. It's a very important sport media in Venezuela.
I'm quite familiar with that. I've had friends that have talked to me about that publication, some that have worked for it, yes.
Yeah, so it's really amazing because sometimes I am reading Meridiano, for example, any news is yours. And I think, oh my God, this guy, this writer is my friend, I know him. And so it's amazing. For me, it's a pleasure, this interview. So I am proud of you. Thank you so much for your time. So thank you for your passion when you write, because we can feel that. You know, we can feel your responsibilities. You know, 100% is true that you say, with respect the game, respect the players. So thank you so much for your time.
Man, that's a beautiful compliment. It's going to keep me going all day today, man. Thank you very much. And, hey, I appreciate everybody that follows this game. I mean, people love this sport. It's in their blood, you know, and that's something that, you know, I've learned. I mean, I covered every level of the minor leagues, and you start meeting players from all around the world that this game means so much to them. Maybe there isn't American football. There isn't a lot of basketball in some places. This is the sport, and I love that. And, yes, a place like Venezuela, I think you could feel that when the Rockies were good back in around 2010, 2007 through 10, you could feel those fans here. Some of them even made trips from there to come watch their Rockies play. So that's one of the things that you look forward to if the Rockies do turn the corner. The Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Mexico, the kids from the United States. This is a great place for everyone to get together. Thank you. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
thank you.
Soy el periodista Abel Flores, acreditado para cubrir el béisbol de Grandes Ligas desde Colorado para el mundo, y te invito a seguirme en mi cuenta Amantes del Béisbol 2021, donde encontrarás contenido exclusivo, entrevistas, informes, reportajes, comentarios exclusivos de nuestros peloteros Grandes Ligas de Venezuela, República Dominicana, México, Puerto Rico, Panamá, un contenido exclusivo que no encontrarás en ninguna otra plataforma, ni en televisión, ni en radio, ni en prensa. No esperes el noticiero de la noche, no tienes que leer la noticia del día de ayer. En esta plataforma multimedia te brindamos toda la información. Amantes del Béisbol 2021.
For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball